How's it going, you guys? I am Alonzo Perry, running for House of Delegates in District 97, and I am here with Jacob and Josh Cross. How's it going, gentlemen?
Pretty good. Pretty good.
So today it looks like we have a couple of topics today that are really important to the election cycle this year. We know that parents have really been the centerfold of the conversation in 2022, correct? And, we felt as if it would be important to kind of talk about what's not only happening here in West Virginia with SB 704, which is our Parents' Bill of Rights, but also a constitutional amendment that's coming called House Joint Resolution 102, which will kind of explain the mechanisms of what a constitutional amendment is to some of the people that may not be familiar with why that's necessary or what are basically the contents of that. Basically, we're going to make this episode about parents because families first. Now, is there anything that you guys want to kind of get into before we start today? I know I really want to tell people about the little event I attended with some of the school board members. I know I got to meet Melissa Power and Ron Hurst and some of the other candidates that are actually running for the school board, and I thought that they were some really interesting people. I got to meet with the Blue Ridge Patriots, and they allowed me just a little segment to speak, and I think some of the key messages in that conversation about this campaign, which we went over last episode, are still really important, and it's nice to reiterate and get into it. I mean, when I was talking to them, I asked them, or basically told them, like, we don't ask for much as Americans, right? Like, we want safe communities for our families, we want a functioning economy that works for us so that we can pay the bills and protect our families, and we want a future for our children, and I think that that's really symbolic for what we're going to go over today. So where do you guys want to start?
So before we start, so we had the website up and running. The only thing about the website is it's not mobile friendly. You can look it up on, a mobile device, but it's just going to be, the layout's not going to be very good. So I advise you to just look it up on your computer or something like that. The website's running. Our team's working on making it mobile friendly. Website's running.
First of all, that website is absolutely outstanding, and I mean, they're probably not even familiar with how much work that you two have done for this campaign and for them, because there's no way that we can really mobilize any type of movement that is reshaping the power dynamic to give it back to people without the logo, without the merchandise that we're getting ready to sell. I mean, a lot of the things that we're working on right now, have far-reaching implications on our future. And I know that Berkeley County Sheriff Department doesn't even have a website yet. And the fact that you've developed a website
They don't have a website?
No, they don't have a website.
That's pretty sad.
I was having a conversation with Sheriff Harmon, and he was letting me know how they're moving towards it. But when he got in office, he was like, "Where's your website?" He's like, "This is the 21st century." So he's actually working on it. And I told him, I was like, "I got a guy." I was like, I'm sure he would be happy if, he could get a paycheck for coming out there and, developing something that the entire community needs. I mean, he's done a lot of great things with bringing transparency forward in the fact that, when they do drug busts and stuff, he's very engaged with people. And every time I go to something like just a local event, I mean, he really shows up and he talks to people and he keeps it, thorough. And I think that that's something that I really idolize about him, because, he'll listen to anybody and he'll talk to anyone, and he doesn't allow, anything left up to the imagination. When they see something or they are operating within our communities, he is upfront letting them know, you know, what the goal is of Berkeley Sheriff Department. And those are some really good guys. I really appreciate them. I know when I worked at the hospital, they were in and out with different people, and I got to meet a good bulk of them, and they're genuinely like really good people. But yeah, so it's incredible that Perry Live and this movement in general has a website. You know, I thank you guys so much for that. You know,
and I don't do it for the money. I do it to help the community, and you know. Yeah.
It's when we all came together or whatever, I feel like we were under this general sense that things just aren't being done correctly, right? And so we really smashed three heads into one, and we were like, you know, everything that we do is going to be predicated on trying to give people as much information as possible, being upfront. I mean, we don't hide opinions, right? Like, we don't hide anything. I know a lot of politicians, you know, it's not, we talked about this last episode, it's not beneficial to be in front of a camera and having your phrases snippet or cut into a fraction of what message you're trying to emit. But we do it because we know that it's important to be able to cover information that people, while they're making an honest living, you know, are too busy to, you know, dissect through. I mean, who just sits on their phone and is like, you know what I'm going to go through today? A bunch of bills. I think, you know, reading what my legislature is doing is just, this is my favorite pastime, you know? Like, no, they're out here, they're making an honest living. They got calluses in their hands. You know, they're hardworking people, and West Virginia is known for that. I mean, we have just especially in the Eastern Panhandle, we have a lot of factories. We have, you know, P&G, we have Macy's, we have PepsiCo. I mean, we have Amazon. When people want to put their factory somewhere, they come to West Virginia because they know that we're going to put some hands on something and get it done. And we're just putting that movement into this campaign, right? Like, we're physically immersing ourselves. And, you know, the only type of people that I support in these kinds of things are those people that I feel are rugged and really want to listen and absorb information, people that are just giving as much information as possible to everyone. And that's why I mentioned how Sheriff Harmon's a good dude. I mean, if Sheriff Harmon wasn't a good dude, I wouldn't say it, but I've met him, and he is proactive, and that's something that I strive to be, you know?
Oh.
So, as for the Parent Bill of Rights, you know, first let's talk about where this derives from. Where has this came from? Why is this relevant in West Virginia, right? So, one of the first things that really struck my attention in this issue was kind of some of the national sentiment, right? Like, the national government was kind of under the assumption that, you know, parents don't have a right to have access to what their kids are learning, the curriculum, the material, and there was a growing consensus of Americans, bipartisan, that were just like elated by this. They were grossed out. They were like, you know, I should be involved in my child's education. And so all across the country, there are school boards that, you know, have parents talking about, you know, different policies enacted, talking about the materials that are in there. And so, you know, it's really easy for people in West Virginia to be like, well, you know, that's not happening here. That's not something that is relevant to here. How is this relevant, you know? And we look at this bill, or before we even get to the point of the bill, you know, we have to understand that there is a growing consensus between a technocratic class of people that believe that, you know, we should push ideas through a bureau and there should be no check to allow people to petition forces against them. That is word salad.
Yeah.
What I'm saying is that people are not able to challenge forces against them. And when we look at what has happened just here, even recently, at Spring Mills High School, we had a book that had extremely pornographic material. And it's not even pornographic, it's pedophilic. And, you know, it detailed the rape of an underage child. And a student who had to read this outside or read this out loud in class was perturbed. You know, she was devastated. I believe she was a sophomore, and she brought up the concern to her parent, and her parent actually comes out and, you know, is like, well, no, this is not going to happen. I'm calling the principal. So she calls Spring Mills principal, and long story short, she was told basically kick rocks, you know, that the curriculum isn't changing because of your child. There's a parental consent form. Well, the funny part about these ideas that contain things like syllabuses or consent forms is that people don't know what they're consenting to.
Yeah.
You know, we can sit there and say all day, you know, hey, you sign this paper, so that means that you're okay with everything that goes on in the classroom, but that doesn't cover what is the physical material. Why parents should be asking them, why am I signing this?
Yeah.
They should be like, what is in this book? Did anyone vet it? Is there something that traumatic that, you know, it probably shouldn't even be discussed in a school, period? You know, I mean, we send our kids to go to school to get an education, you know, to teach them how to think and not what to think,
Yeah.
right? And I don't think that we're hitting the mark right now with where we're aiming. I mean, so that's laying the landscape of what's happening locally. So we have people that have went to Berkeley County school boards, went to Jefferson County school boards, and have started to voice their concerns. So when people tell me that this isn't topical or this isn't related to events in West Virginia, they're all related. They're all related. And the reason why it's being brought up is because it's happening, even here in our state. And to ignore what's happening is foolish. So I don't know where we want to begin. If we want to begin with Florida's bill and disclosing some of their information, or talking about the one here in West Virginia.
I feel like we should start with like other states' bills, and then we'll end it off with our bill, and then we'll go from there.
We could also go over Pierce v. Society of Sisters.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah.
And the main message in Pierce v. Society of Sisters was what, Jacob? What it was? What that cover?
The child is not the mere creature of the state.
Yeah.
So I can pull it up right.
And that's a powerful message. A child is not a mere creature of the state. Now, the actual case, Pierce v. Society of Sisters, was roughly in the 20s, and it was talking about
1925.
1925.
Yeah.
And so what was the actual wording, or what was the value at stake?
So pretty much the whole case dealt with pretty much they were banning certain, I think it had to do with all pretty much most private schools, I think, religious schools, and the Supreme Court ruled against that. And then they had find a quote right here.
He's finding it. He's getting there.
I think, you know,
I think it's 268, Jacob.
It is.
See, the thing is See, they incorporate all this like stuff into the classroom, and then they think it's normal. Like,
Yeah.
It's
And you know, it makes you wonder if why are we, you know, attempting to normalize things that, you know, are making people truly uncomfortable. And I don't know if school is the place to even have these conversations. I know I hope to one day be a parent, and I want to be able to introduce, you know, my child to certain concepts at the rate that I feel that they're growing. I want to allow my children to be kids.
Well,
You know, that's an important.
usually the parents, when they're a young age, you're teaching them stuff.
Yeah. No.
Like you're teaching them like you're either like discipline, like just teaching them.
Yeah.
It's just teaching them. I don't know.
So when I was at the meeting, somebody said something that actually it didn't apply to me at first. Like it wasn't the very first thing that stuck out in my mind when approaching this problem, right? And one of the concerned like parents, they said, essentially, you know, even if I were to say no to the consent form required for this reading in that class, you know, even if my child was like, you know, yeah, I don't want to sign up for, you know, to read this type of novel or whatnot, that child would be, removed from the class, you know, and it's not like their peers wouldn't talk about that section later, or it's not like they wouldn't interact them. That's kind of ostracizing them, you know? That's making them feel as if, you know, it's kind of
like,
singling them out.
Yeah, it's like they
You
don't
know?
fit into the classroom.
Yeah, exactly. They're not a part of it. And I hadn't even thought about it like that. You know, it was one of those things where I was sitting there and I was like, wow, like that's a powerful message, you know? And I think that it was great to see as many people that came out to that meeting, because those are civically engaged people. And even if you are somebody that is not, you know, in line or wanting to even if you had a separate message, it helps to be civically engaged, to go out there and see what the conversation is being held. Because people ask me about this House Joint Resolution, and I was like, to be honest, at face value, I'm voting no on this if personally I'm in the House. And we'll go over some of the reasons as to why. But they said, make sure, you know, you're reading the whole bill and seeing, you know, what are the implications. And I went and I read it again, and I said no. And it's because, you know, it's filled with information and a set of values that I don't feel like will register with a lot of people. But that's why we have Perry Live, right? To be able to communicate what's going on and figure out if this is something that people are okay with, if it's something that they want to happen. I think that it is paramount, especially from the conversations that I had at the Blue Ridge Patriots. I mean, I was there talking to individuals who, you know, who are paying attention, and people who, you know, they have their own backgrounds. I remember I even met a guy that recognized the pin from my shirt, and he was like, 127 Infantry. And I was like, that's awesome, man. You know, like I was like, that's cool. I appreciate that. I got to meet the school board candidates, and, you know, it's crazy to me how, especially at the local level, right? People are very accessible, and we honestly, I feel like I could speak for all of us. We want to be engaged with people. We want to know what's going on in your life, what are things you care about, and what are your thought processes on, you know, some of the topics that we have to vote on. I think allowing, you know, our political candidates, especially in the local area, not have our opinions or even hear from us or see us or know us. I mean, I'll remember all those people by face. I know that, you know, I'm the type of guy, I may not remember names as well, but I'll know their face, and I'll be like, you know, hey, like, it's nice to see you again. How are you doing? You know, people are, we're a community. We all live in an area where I feel like most of us have the same or similar shared values. We communicate with each other. And what's funny to me is that most Americans are not divided on these issues as we're taught to believe, right? I think that, you know, we're fed it in a way or in a manner that would try to make it seem as if we are coming from complete opposite sides of the spectrum. But most people having these conversations, you know, face to face, there's really not conflict, right? There's no abrasive angles at it. That's left for the politicians, for them to make it seem as if, you know, there is a larger gap, or that, you know, it's a us versus them type of mindset. You know, we want to have the conversation. We want to have the dialogue. We want to have differentiating opinions.
Yeah, it's good to learn.
So that way we're able to justify our point, right? It's interesting. But you were going to say something?
Yeah, it's good to learn different opinions to form your own opinion.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Now, did you find...
Yeah, I found it.
Okay, where we at?
So, yes. The child is not the mere creature of the state. Those who nurture him and direct his destiny have the right, coupled with the high duty, to recognize and prepare him for additional obligations. And so pretty much this act of 1922, which was passed in Oregon, the Supreme Court said it unreasonably interfered with the liberty of parents and guardians to direct the upbringing and education of their children, and that whole act banned pretty much all private schools in the state of Oregon. So
Wow. Now, it's funny because history repeats itself. And who would know that a case, you know, almost 100 years ago would have implications on schools and some of the same topics.
It's like we don't learn.
Yeah, that's exactly
We
what
don't
it's
learn
like.
from our mistakes.
That's exactly what it's like. So now that we've got that and we've talked about some of the things that happened at Spring Mills, do you guys want to kind of go into Florida's parental rights bill and some of the kind of misconceptions I feel with it as well? Because I think that, you know, we have seen pundits take a parental education bill or rights bill, parental rights bill, and almost mutilate it in its presentation by the modern media, right? They have taken it, they have editorialized, add their own opinions, and made mentions to stuff on it that just simply does not, it's not based in any reality.
They make their opinion as fact.
Yeah,
pretty
yeah.
much.
So, do one of you guys want to read it? Or
yeah, we can pull up the bill.
Jacob's getting it.
There it is. So, want me to read it word for word, or do you want me to just summarize what it says?
I mean, we can pretty much.
I mean, we could read a page or so and then just summarize it from there. I don't know.
Yeah.
I guess we can go from there.
So, an act relating to parental rights and education, requiring district school boards to adopt procedures that comport with certain provisions of law for notifying a student's parent of specified information, requiring such procedures to reinforce the fundamental right of parents to make decisions regarding the upbringing and control of their children in a specified manner, prohibiting the procedures from prohibiting a parent from assessing certain records, providing construction, prohibiting a school district from adopting procedures or student support forms that prohibit school district personnel from notifying a parent about specified information, or that encourage or have the effect of encouraging a student to withhold from a parent such information, prohibiting school district personnel from discouraging or prohibiting parental notification and involvement in critical decisions affecting a student's mental, emotional, or physical well-being, providing construction, prohibiting classroom discussion about sexual orientation or gender identity in certain grade levels or in a specified manner, requiring certain training developed or provided by a school district to adhere to standards established by the Department of Education. So that's pretty much the first page of.
So I want to start off. See, the stuff they're incorporating into the classrooms, kids, their brains are still developing. So like they could easily pick up stuff, and then as time goes by, they normalize it. It's like normalized in their
Yeah.
brains.
Now, I think one of the important messages in there is talking about taking care of their emotional and mental well-being. Now, I don't understand how you could disagree with that bill. I'll be honest with you. There's not a vowel or syllable in this bill that I disagree with. I think that the types of education, especially related to sex education, has become a minefield of conversation for individuals. However, when we editorialize and we make it sound as if it is a bill called the Don't Say Gay Rights Bill, right? We are fundamentally not telling the truth. There is no truth in that.
Hey, that's why we had this show, to be transparent.
We're talking about 5, 6, 7, and 8-year-old children not being taught about material that is just inappropriate for an 8-year-old child. That's what we're talking about.
Yeah, because it specifically doesn't allow that to be taught to kindergarten up to third graders.
Or
Anything else that's not age appropriate.
exactly.
So it's not including high school
No.
students.
No.
So
And like small children, they shouldn't be learning about sex. Like they're usually learning, well, or not learning, but they're usually learning about like playing with toys or fantasy and
says-
stuff like that.
And that's a testament to West Virginia's politics, because when we talk about our third graders, we're trying to make sure that they're literate. We just passed a bill, or are attempting to pass a bill, which for some reason is controversial as well, where you must be literate to enter the 4th grade. That's what we're talking about. The same age group of children. We're making sure that they're able to read and write.
yeah.
And there's a coalition or movement of people trying to convince you that we don't want to talk about the LGBTQ movement. That is not what the bill talks about. It talks about not teaching about any type of sexual relations
Yeah.
with children that are 5 through 8 years old. I'm not sure who can disagree with that.
They're not-
And the
they're not
type
even-
of person that disagrees with that, well, we would have to have a conversation. But I feel as if we have to look at the factual information of what's coming through these bills, because what these news outlets are doing is they will create an alternate name for the bill and paint a narrative that does not exist. Now, we know that we had discussion in this in our class in college, and the way that it was presented to us was that they didn't, specify in the bill anywhere K through 12. Now, that is simply not true. It did specify. It said 3rd graders. And even in his reading of the bill, he said primary education, which we would know would still be 5th from kindergarten through 5th grade.
Mhm.
So to mistake this as something else is quite baffling. But West Virginia is taking a different approach, and we've discussed different aspects of parental rights and creating a syllabus or some aspect of parental rights that will allow basically parents to access their kids' information. And as we discussed roughly 20 minutes ago, a syllabus is just not going to cut it. You can have the book name. I mean, it doesn't give us the information that we need to know. This does not cover all of the things that we know parents should be involved in school. I believe personally that when a guest speaker comes to the school, that parents should be notified. Who is the guest speaker? Is it I believe that when a parent should be able to go to the school, they should be able to see their minor child and what learning environment that they're in, and to see how their teacher operates, how the school works, because that alleviates parents from, sending their kids off to these schools every day and just being totally unaware of, what's going on in their classroom.
That's the same, like you said about the media, like they're painting a narrative. Like, just to think about like the teachers in the classroom, they could be doing the same thing.
This is true. This is true. Another big win we can talk about in West Virginia is that they've actually, and this is something that every politician that is sitting in our legislature right now agrees with, and that there was 100% support for a bill that provides cameras in special ed classrooms. And that was a huge win, especially considering that a couple of years ago in Berkeley County, there was assaults on some of the children that were in our special ed departments here. And it was a travesty. So kudos to them for being able to stand on a principle and actually get that enforced.
Yeah.
But I see that.
You want to continue on the Florida bill? We weren't done with that.
You go ahead with what you were saying.
So basically in light of some of the things that we've seen out of this Florida bill, I mean, what do you propose that how do you want to, slice this information? Because I think people got that. Do you want to move on to SB 704 and see?
Yeah, we can move on to that.
Yeah.
I think we covered the bulk of that.
That's 102. There it is.
Okay.
All right, so I'm going to pull up 702 here too.
And 704.
You said 702.
Is it 704?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, Senate Bill 704. And this says that it's allowing parents, grandparents, and guardians to inspect instructional materials. And that's just simply not enough. As I said, there's other things that we need to incorporate in order to make sure that parents are involved in their kids' education. Now, I mean, we even covered that, really, all of the other things that we need to add. We can move on to the House Joint Resolution 102, and I feel like that would give a good place for some of the other things that are going on and something that we talked about in that meeting, because they asked if I supported it. And before we start to talk about that, we should probably tell people what a constitutional amendment is and what it requires. Constitutional amendment is basically just it's not passing a simple bill. Now, a constitutional amendment requires a majority to basically rewrite the state's constitution in order to add something. So what we're trying to do, or what the legislature is trying to do right now, is create an oversight board. Now, would you like me to read it, or do you want to read it?
You can read it.
So it says, proposing an amendment to the Constitution of the State of West Virginia, Section 2, Article 12, thereof, relating to education and the supervision of free schools, clarifying that the policymaking and rulemaking authority of the State Board of Education is subject to legislative review, approval, amendment, or rejection, numbering and designating such proposed amendment, and providing a summarized statement of the purpose of such proposed amendment. The question of ratification or rejection of the amendment to the Constitution of the state of West Virginia be submitted to the voters of the state in the next general election to be held in the year 2022, which proposed amendment is that Section 2, Article 12 thereof be amended and reenacted to read as follows. Subject to the provisions in this section, the general supervision of free schools of the state is vested in West Virginia Board of Education, which shall perform the duties prescribed by law. Under its supervisory duties, the West Virginia Board of Education may promulgate rules or policies which shall be submitted to the legislature for its review and approval, amendment, or rejection, in whole or in part, in the manner prescribed by general law. The board shall consist of 9 members to be appointed by the governor, by the advice and consent of the Senate. Overlapping terms of 9 years, no more than 5 members of the board shall belong to the same political party, and in addition, the general qualifications otherwise required by the Constitution. The legislature may require other specified qualities or qualifications for membership on the board. No member of the board may be removed from the office by the governor except for official misconduct, incompetence, negligence of duty, or gross immorality, in the only manner prescribed by the law for the removal of the governor of state elected officials. Now,
So pretty much the legislature's already proposed this amendment. It's got to be sent off to the voters for ratification.
nice.
Yeah.
So, with everything that's happened in the country and even here in West Virginia, as we've covered, it's obviously that there's some type of legislative oversight needed, right? But here's a couple of things that just kind of rubs me the wrong way. I'm not sure if I fully agree with the governor appointing the members of this board, and I also don't feel extremely comfortable with this idea of limiting or mitigating the party affiliates of this respective board. I mean, why should the governor choose who is oversighting these state, these elected
You think,
positions?
yeah, you think, like, you think the voters would have a say in that, not the
Exactly. I
governor.
mean, we vote for our school board members already.
Yeah.
I mean, I was with them, and to say that, well, we're going to have elected school board members, but then we're going to appoint some that are basically over you. They're your oversight board. There was oversight. The voters picked who they
Yeah.
wanted to run their school boards. Now, one of the interesting things that I found out that they've been trying to correct is that our actual school board members, they don't run with a party affiliation, and I think that that's incorrect, because why do most people, I feel, want to vote for people that share their value system.
Yeah.
It only makes sense to know that the person that you're voting for in the school board, they don't have to be a partisan individual per se, but you should know how they vote or something relative to what party do they think has the right message or right movement in this state. Now, I'm not sure what Ron or Melissa Power, I don't know what their political affiliation, but when I talked to them, I knew that they were great people. I want people to know, their party affiliation and things that they believe in, morally. And a lot of times people are not able to go to, these meetings that we're going to. Shoot, I hardly have enough time to, get around and meet as many people as possible, but we try. And we started this podcast because we figured, well, we might be able to reach even more people by, simply talking and figuring out, how we feel about some of these specific issues and what is being said, what is happening. So I think as a rule, I'm not sold by this House resolution. But what do you guys say?
I mean, I definitely agree with you that I think the people should be the ones deciding who's going to be on that on this oversight board, not the governor, because like you said, the board members are already picked by the voters, so it doesn't really make sense that you're going to have non-elected officials
You think it's
over
gonna get
having
passed?
oversight over.
Oh, of course it's going to pass. And I, what was funny was, I don't think that when I was at that meeting, it was actually kind of mixed. This is one of those political gray areas that I was talking about, that, it's not, there is no left or right view of this piece of, or this resolution.
Yeah.
It feels as if there is a sense that, sure, there should be oversight, and then it's a question of, is this the right way to do it?
Yeah.
Now, my answer is sure to the oversight. I do not like how this is construed, and I don't think that it's providing the right message. There were people in there that disagreed with me, and that's fine. I gave my case as for why I don't believe that this is the right direction, and it's up to the voters and other legislators to basically figure out, hey, okay, he has a point. We like the resolution and what it's trying to instrument, because there is oversight needed, and that's with anything, because there has to be a voice for people. There are too many mechanisms of bureaucracy and too many mechanisms that completely disenfranchise people from being able to petition forces against them. There's too many. I mean, when a parent calls a principal, in order for a principal to tell you that something just isn't going to happen, that they don't work for that individual, there has to be a check to that.
Yeah.
I mean, our founding documents, our Constitution, that was like one of the principal concepts. And as we have started to shift power down to different levels of government, as we've created like bureaucracies to handle some of the bulks of information, we've lost that concept, because there's no checks built intrinsically into that system. So, I had a group of child care providers tell me about how members of the ECE and some of the issues that they're having with the Mountain Heart subsidies ran by the DHHR, they were telling them, well, child providers don't have rights. What is that reminiscent of? Is that not the same thing that led to the Parental Bill of Rights?
Yeah.
And I'm realizing that it's everywhere. It's in our courts, it's in, and these are not people that have been convicted of anything. These aren't people that are even of a criminal volition. This is just, your average, like everyday American that's like, being told that they don't have a right to certain things, or that there is no, I am an authority figure. I'm a part of this managerial elite, and you have no say,
You also got that custody bill in the legislature.
Yes. So that actually is, it passed both the Senate and the House. I think it's on its way. I mean, they were talking about it today, so I haven't got the full update on it, but they are really close to winning this shared parenting bill, and it's for the presumption of 50-50 custody. Now, it's not saying that, we are binding this legislative or this piece of law is not binding to parents to have 50-50 custody. It's starting at that point until there is a reason or evidence to prove that there is a reason to have any other child care arrangements. Now, I don't understand. I mean, when I first heard it, I was like, I didn't know about some of the issues with parents going to, these divorce courts and stuff. I had no further background on it until I was approached by, this man who was telling me about, the misconduct of judges and sending me like article after article of this stuff and showing me articles of where this bill has been implemented and some of the good things that have came out of it. You know, it was removed from the Best Interests of the Child Act of 2021, and we finally are seeing it now be passed in. And I'm really proud of the guys that are working behind that, and some of the people that have joined that movement of people to really give people a fair shot. Because there's even people that I've seen, you know, be like in the military, and they go to get a divorce, and just simply because they serve our country,
What?
they're assumed that they should have less custody because they may be busy, they may get deployed, so they will automatically, you know, scale it against them.
That's a terrible excuse.
And not only that, but it's also incentivized. So you guys realize that the federal government will actually pay states for skewing child custody towards women. We get like Medicare benefits for it.
Yeah.
And that's I mean, that's a crazy incentive if you think about it. You know, that's not, we have to be careful what we incentivize.
Encourages this lopsided, pretty much decisions in a lot of these child custody cases.
Yeah. And, you know, the arguments against this was that judges should have discretion. That was the argument. And I couldn't think of a more elitist argument in that scenario. Why should this judge have unlimited power in even just showing up? Just having a parent or two parents come to the stand and you get to just create a magic number. What kind of power? What arbitrary power is that? That's absolutely ridiculous to me, you know. And they could say it's based in something, but it's not, you know. It's based in feelings. It's based in bias, you know. And one of the things I was thinking about was some of the social implications, because what is a judge? A judge is somebody who was 18 years old, got a 4-year degree, right? Went to law school, became a practicing lawyer, has probably most of their life come from some sort of privilege, right? And they are in a greater socioeconomic class, probably have been for most of their life, or at least have, you know, started to break down some of that old hardy worker man, you know, beliefs that got them to that point to where they are appointed a judge. And from there, I think that they don't think about, you know, well, maybe this action has far-reaching implications. Maybe it's, you know, I mean, I don't know what it is, you know, but
It's sad.
I don't think that anyone should be able to have unchecked power.
Yeah.
And I think there's a quote on power that talks about that.
The way judges should go about looking at these cases should be an individual, like a case-by-case thing. It shouldn't just you automatically like assume
Yeah.
before going into the case. Like you should look at the evidence and then make your decision based off the evidence.
It's like they go
Exactly.
off. It's like they go off by opinion.
It
Yeah.
does. It really is, you know. And I wonder what they do. I wonder if they like flip a coin. You know? They're like, I'll just leave this up to
it's
fate.
tails.
Yeah. And you get 70% and you get 30%. You know? Like it's unbelievable. But that's something that we have to realize, and, you know, being working class individuals ourselves, we got to think about where is this also happening? Because I talk to people, and when I talk about that specific issue, you know, and how things are becoming more managerial, it makes me wonder, like, where else is this happening, you know? And how can we protect people from that type of, you know, behavior and that type of elitism, you know?
It's everywhere.
I mean, yeah, but that's something that we definitely have to work on. I think today has been a really good podcast. We got to, yeah.
Actually, before we end it, do you have any ideas? Like any ideas on, like, if you were creating a bill, like a perennial bill in West Virginia, what would you incorporate into that bill?
Into like a parental rights bill.
Yeah.
So I actually I made a post about this a little recently.
And it's actually on the website, but for anyone that doesn't know, you can inform them about your stipulations.
Yeah, so I think that it's important to find things that actually work, right? And we know that when we talk about the parental rights bill, that the stuff that has been proposed, it doesn't really get to the root of the issue. So, I mean, I don't mind pulling it up and being able to talk people through it and why I have kind of broke it down into the ways that I feel would make the most impact in the lives of families. And, you know, because I've seen even a bill that was like requiring school boards to like broadcast their meetings online. And like, that's a good bill, you know. I mean, I think that it's important to, you know, have access or be able to show transparency, right, with how things are. But I don't think that we've gone far enough in making sure that parents' rights are actually secure. So here's what I propose, and that's the right to know what their minor child is being taught in school, including not limited, the curricula, books, and other instructional materials. School districts shall be prohibited from requiring non-disclosure agreements or similar forms of parental review of curricula, and shall instead allow parents to make copies of curriculum documents. The right to information on who is teaching their minor child, including guest lecturers and outside presenters. Schools and school districts shall allow student involvement in assemblies, field trips, and other extracurricular activities if parents opt in rather than opt out. The right to information on individuals and organizations receiving school contracts and funding. The right to visit the school and check in on their minor child during school hours. The right to school records, medical, and otherwise concerning their minor child. The right to information about the collection and transmission of their minor child's data. School and school districts shall obtain parental consent prior to collecting any biometric data or other sensitive personal information, and the right to have sufficient accountability and transparency regarding school boards. And that's all that they've done, is that last one.
Yeah.
That's so far, that's all that's been passed. I believe that we should also have the right to know about situations affecting their child's safety, and parents should be notified in a timely manner of all reported incidents. And I want to say that this is important because it includes all crimes, misdemeanors committed by, you know, teachers and school employees. But I want to take that a little step further, because I actually just saw a post talking about how there was an accident it was a motor vehicle accident with, I want to say, a bus in Jefferson County, and the bus was about a mile away from one of the parents' homes or whatnot, and it took them about an hour to notify the parents. I mean, God forbid something, you know, severe happened to any of our children, but could you imagine waiting or knowing every day when your child comes home at a certain time and they're not there at that time because there was an accident, and you have no idea what's going on? You know, there was no way to reach out or figure out, you know, why this wasn't on schedule, and I don't know the details of this particular issue entirely, so I don't want to speak to it, but that's something that's important. I think that if there was something criminal that happened in the school, I think parents should be notified about that too. I think if there's a fight at school, parents should be notified about that. You know, think about how many times there are fights that just are not reported whatsoever, and they have no idea, you know, the conditions or some of the things that are even happening in this environment. And this is somewhere that their kids are compelled to go, you know?
Even bowling.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's another thing.
And that's usually what stems from it too. You know, I mean, it's hard to believe that, you know, it's 2020 or 2022. I'm gonna butcher that all day, you know.
Yeah.
But it's hard to believe that it's this year, and we're just now starting to ask these questions and figure out, you know, how we can secure a better future for our families. And you know, I think that it's a really important message going forward. I don't have very much to add. I think I appreciate everybody for participating and watching us here today go over some of these pieces of legislation. Is there anything that you guys would like to add as we close?
Well, I will say this. Usually, like, parents, like, they're usually near, like, they're always by their kids or near their kids, and then once you send them to school, like, you're not near your kids, like, and that's the thing, like, parents they're always supervising their kids, and then once they send them to school, it's a different story. So I feel like they should know what's happening in the schools. Like, they should have oversight, and they should be notified. And I believe that's what we need.
I agree.
Yeah.
Is there anything you have to add?
No, I think that's pretty much summarizes it all.
Yeah. So, we'd like to thank you guys again for coming out and seeing us, and God bless you guys. All right.
Thank you.
Have a good one.